Hello there, welcome back to the channel. Hey Dexter, do you like video games? Go to hell. In 2016, 20th Century Fox released Assassin's Creed, a film adaptation of the popular video game series. It starred Michael Fassbender and was directed by Australian filmmaker Justin Kurzel. It was not great. It was boring, confusing, and ugly. Look at that. But that was a video game adaptation and they have had very little critical success, with the best one ever being Detective Pikachu. And I think that everyone knows that Michael Fassbender is a talented actor. The director, Justin Kurzel, hasn't done that much, at least not yet. So could a collaboration between these two have worked better under different circumstances? Well, luckily they did collaborate before Assassin's Creed. And instead of adapting a video game, they worked on an adaptation of something a little more, or rather seen as a little more highbrow. In 2015, Fassbender and Kurzel released an adaptation of The Tragedy of Macbeth by William Shakespeare. Macbeth is one of Shakespeare's most famous plays, a story of ambition, corruption, and guilt. They have been making Macbeth movies for nearly as long as movies started being made. There was an adaptation by Orson Welles, an adaptation by Roman Polanski. Yeah, him. A modern version starring Sam Worthington, and another starring Patrick Stewart. Even Lawrence Oliver tried to get one made. And even Kurosawa Akira adapted Macbeth as a samurai film. So countless artists have wanted to put their own spin on this story over the years. And does this version of Macbeth live up to that legacy? Let's take a look.
I feel now the future. Hail, King that shall be.
My dearest love, Duncan comes here tonight.
Look like the innocent flower, but with the serpent under it.
This is not my favourite film adaptation of a William Shakespeare play, nor is it my favourite adaptation of Macbeth. I do prefer Polanski's version of Macbeth. Now, that's not to say that this version of Macbeth is worthless. Far from it, just to be clear. It has some talented actors, some interesting ideas that deviate from Shakespeare's quill, and some very, very handsome visuals. To describe the plot of Macbeth seems rather perfunctory. Macbeth wants to be king, becomes king, goes crazy and dies. It's a story that's been told countless times and continues to be told to this day because the story is timeless. Though this particular version does have a few watermarks of 2015. This version of Macbeth does look a lot like an episode of Game of Thrones. It has a very gritty and realistic look to it. There aren't very many bright colours and King Duncan's death is really gory. While this film does have a talented cast, everybody pretty much just whispers their dialogue, which to be fair does sometimes work, especially when they slowly go from quiet to loud during a scene. Still, these filmmakers do know that this story was envisioned to be performed on stage, right? The way that these actors are directed prevents them from really bringing these characters to life. Michael Fassbender should theoretically make for a great, possibly even definitive Macbeth, but he's rather standard. He does have his moments, it's just that his performance doesn't rank amongst his best. Marion Cotillard, perhaps best known for her performances in The Dark Knight Rises and Inception, portrays Lady Macbeth, and even though she's by no means terrible, she can't leave as much of an impression as she should. She is great in one scene, but like Fassbender doesn't deliver a definitive performance. Fun fact, Natalie Portman was originally cast as Lady Macbeth. The film does have some pretty interesting visuals and scenes, at the very least a better looking film than Assassin's Creed. Way out of its league. If you saw Assassin's Creed after this, you might have thought, geez, what happened to the director? Maybe it was Ubisoft's fault. Macbeth 2015 is a very pretty and fairly faithful adaptation of William Shakespeare's famous tragedy. It has some strong moments, but unfortunately, it's a little bit standard. Most people aren't going to remember much about it a day after watching it.